This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Harley Race.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
This is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Boston on Sunday, June 29th. All roads lead to WWE's Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Live in Boston for the first time ever. See John Cena, Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan, Sheamus, The Shield, The Wyatt family, and more compete to seize the briefcase with the Money in the Bank contract for the chance to become WWE World Heavyweight Champion. It's WWE Money in the Bank, live in Boston Sunday, June 29th. Tickets available Saturday, April 12th.
Wrestling fans from around the corner and around the world, welcome to another installment of the Wrestling Insiders. I'm Dan Marotti, happy to be joined today on Thursday, April the 17th, 2014, by the voice of wrestling here in New England, the one and only, the historian, the Jackal. Jackal, how are you?
Not bad.
Well, it's been quite a while since we've had you here in a program, since you overcame those several throat surgeries at the hands of stalker Dylan Cage. We won't get into that right now. This program is to focus on what's going on in the world of professional wrestling everywhere, not just the Millennium Wrestling Federation. You thought, what a better way to kick it off than flash back to the WrestleMania weekend for WWE.
What a fantastic weekend it was. I really enjoyed myself over there.
Now, WWE took over New Orleans. It's one of your favorite cities, I'm sure, for different reasons other than wrestling. It was the big test for WWE. Was the WWE Network going to be able to pull it off? And despite a lot of worries, in the end, I think it was smooth sailing all the way around.
Yes, it was, and I think more people expect more problems with Mania than they did with the Hall of Fame. And from what I was told, the Hall of Fame went fine, and WrestleMania was almost perfect.
Yeah, I enjoyed some of the programming that was live from New Orleans leading up to WrestleMania on the WWE Network. I think I told you I really wasn't 100% sold on getting it as of yet. I was thinking about ordering WrestleMania on pay-per-view, but then Little Marotti wanted to order it so we could see it live for the first time, and I said, well, I caved in, and we were able to watch it on two different devices at the same time, which was really good. They had, I think they were called Legends of WrestleMania segments from New Orleans all week at the Fan Accesses. Those were interesting. The one that they had after the SmackDown preceding WrestleMania, that had JBL, Mick Foley, and Ric Flair on it. That was a pretty interesting show, Jackal. Did you have a chance to see that?
I've watched them, since I got back, and the WrestleMania special, I believe they were called WrestleMania Today.
Oh,
the day leading up, I think it was WrestleMania Today, say Thursday, WrestleMania Today, Friday, and the one of sometimes Saturday, I believe, or late at night on Friday, I believe that was the Legends of WrestleMania.
Right. This would have been the one that started right after SmackDown at 10 o'clock on the Friday. I think the WrestleMania Todays, I think those were around 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
They were really interesting programs, especially that Legends of WrestleMania one. We had three guys that have headlined WrestleManias in Flair, Mick Foley, and JBL. And I got to say, the WWE Network is an outstanding value. We're going to have, I'm sure, some information up on the screen. But if you have not tried it out yet, check it out, WWE.com. Now you can get a 1-week trial absolutely free. It's like our good friend Diddled. I mean, he loves things for free, and fans that want to try it out before opening up the wallet, so to speak, they can check it out for 7 days, and it's full of wrestling from just about every era.
Myself, obviously I got it day one. I didn't even waste my time with the free week.
I was the same way.
I signed right up. I said, right up, boom. I wanted it.
And for $10, it's a great value. Like I said, WrestleMania on the cable companies, I think it was $60 this year, or somewhere $65 maybe.
Probably, I think it was $64.95.
Wow. Well, that's what I mean. It really paid for itself for the 6 months. You do have to give a 6-month commitment to it, but you get 6 pay-per-views out of the deal.
Not only that, there's over 400 previous pay-per-view events on there from WWE, WWF, WCW, ECW, both Paul Heyman version and WWE's version.
I mean, not only that, you have some of the classic, what are called house shows to those that follow the business in depth, from Boston Garden, Madison Square Garden, some of the great haunts back in the 1980s and early 90s. You have every Legends of Wrestling roundtable from the WWE On Demand, which I liked an awful lot before it was discontinued for the WWE Network.
Not all of them are up yet.
Oh, not all of them are up.
Oh, no.
Well, you're the historian. That's why we have you around.
There's a lot of them up, but they're not all up.
I really haven't had a chance to watch them all, so there we go. Maybe there's a couple that I missed because I kind of got into Classics On Demand late compared to when it was offered in this area. But again, $9.99 a month. You get a 1 week free. Extreme Rules is coming up on Sunday, May the 5th from East Rutherford, New Jersey. What? Oh, is it the 4th?
Yeah.
What did I say, the 5th?
Yeah.
Well, the 5th is Raw in Albany, so there you go. WWE is here, there, and everywhere, and this is your chance to experience it interactively no matter where you go. I happened to go away to New Hampshire this past weekend, and I watch the network a little bit up there to check in on things. There are times when my insomnia strikes. I've even watched it on my iPhone, and it's come through beautiful. Everyone.
Yeah, I was on vacation recently. I mean, I was home, don't get me wrong, but I got my network. It's always on.
Well, I want to know, when are they going to buy the CWA archives so for the 5% of the fans out there that don't remember you from Mass Madness, so they can enjoy the experience for themselves?
Oh, you want that to see that classic cage match with Terry Funk and Abdul the Butcher?
I believe there's 14 different commentary tracks for that.
I enjoyed every one of them, though.
What about the 1996 New Year's Eve special? Oh, boy.
Those are the good old days, though.
You got to love Mass Madness and the CWA. Fans in the New England area that missed out on it, it's a shame. It was professional wrestling the way it was supposed to be presented, even on a regional basis. And for fans around the world, it was before the social media days, so you had to really be in this area to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, I know.
Think about how far technology has come. Think of the phenomenon Mass Madness would have been for the CWA if YouTube and websites and so on existed back then.
Oh, it was big, for what it was. It would have got more exposure.
I mean, what was the general rating on the Saturday night WNDS airings? It was about a 14.2, wasn't it?
I don't know if it got that high.
Well, it was pretty close, maybe a 13.9, but I remember it being close to a 14 in some segments when you broke down the quarter-by-quarter hours. Are you thinking?
I don't know if it was that high, but it did very well, though.
It did. All right, Jackal, let's go back to WrestleMania, the purpose of this edition of the Wrestling Insiders. The night before WrestleMania Eve, it was the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony. You could almost call this the 10th anniversary of that, where the first modern-day WWE Hall of Fame took place the night before WrestleMania 20 in New York City. The last weekend I was ever an able-bodied person. I became disabled the Thursday after that for the Dan Marotti historians out there, but it was an all-star lineup, Jackal.
I thought last year's was a bigger lineup.
Well,
I don't know necessarily bigger, but a better lineup.
I agree with you that as far as that goes, especially when you had Bruno coming back and Backlund and Foley. It almost seems like every era was covered with somebody.
And Booker T.
And Trish Stratus and Donald Trump. And was that it? I think there were only 6. Well, you had a fun trip down to that one. I'm glad I was at the hotel. But anyway, we opened up 2014 with former WWE Women's Champion Lita.
I always said for Lita that she was probably the most talented women's wrestler out there of that day. And even now.
You thought Lita was better than Trish Stratus?
I don't know if she was as over as Trish Stratus, but as far as in the ring, I believe she was better.
Well, you are a historian, Jackal. I'm going to have to give you the nod on that one, where I'm not exactly an aficionado of the women's wrestling. Give us a few Lita highlights and memories throughout her career.
Well, I didn't really pay much attention to her until she was probably with the Hardy Boys. And, of course, how can we forget the Edge segment? I'm so surprised that they were on the air after that.
Are you talking about the what did they call it? The in-ring sex the night after the New Year's Revolution when Edge won the title for the first time?
I mean, come on.
That was like one of your weekends come to life in a professional wrestling ring.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Lita went on for quite a while, just about a half an hour, I believe. Her speech was different than most. She went about it, I guess, in a fun way. I don't think it was a disrespectful way. It was kind of a fun speech compared to most, if you think that's fun. But Lita,
I thought she went too long. She gave a good insight, though, but she still went a little too long.
I thought it was nice that she tipped the hat to all the people that she's worked with outside of WWE, even going back to when she was trained and down in Mexico. And you know, she's still young enough where she could come back.
Well, I'm actually surprised she hasn't been back. Maybe that neck is still bothering her a bit.
I don't think she's been around on WWE regular television programming since the 1000th Raw.
Now, would she ever come back or a full schedule? I don't think you'll ever see that.
Well, that'll be interesting to watch as time goes on. Lita inducted into the 2014 Hall of Fame. Jackal gives her a deserving nod. Then it was on to one of the more interesting inductees in quite some time. No friend of mine, Jake the Snake Roberts.
You have so many friends.
Well, see, the thing is, Jackal, I do have a lot of friends, but the thieves out there and the scumbags, especially the ones that I've had to deal with directly and some that have stolen from my wallet and that of the Millennium Wrestling Federation coffers, I'm not a big fan of. And Jake Roberts is a sleazebag. As a human being, I'm glad he's got to the point now where he can contribute to life a little bit instead of just groveling for drug and alcohol money. I think what Diamond Dallas Page did with both Jake and Scott Hall is real kudos to DDP for his yoga program to be able to get people to be that healthy. I think we talked about it in pre-show notes. The handicap man that Diamond Dallas Page worked with that was on the Andre the Giant type crutches from 1991, one on each arm. And I think it was within 6 months or so, he went from being unable to walk to losing probably close to 100 pounds, and he was able to do a headstand. So, I mean, there's hope for everybody with this. I don't know what Diamond Dallas Page has done that's not of the norm with the yoga, but the bottom line is it's worked. It took Jake the Snake Roberts from being a bottom barrel of humanity individual, and now he's out trying to, I think, get back into WWE from the way he was talking about how great his mind still is.
As long as he's not in the ring.
You have memories of the career of Jake the Snake Roberts, Jackal?
One thing I've always said in talking with many people, even back in the day when they would come up to me at the Boston Garden and bother me, or people I actually like, I always found Jake the Snake had the most horrible matches at WrestleMania.
I mean, you could run down that list, and you're right. I mean, if the match was okay, I guess it would be considered a good night at WrestleMania from him. His first WrestleMania was WrestleMania 2. against George Wells, who was pretty much an undercard guy at that point. Jake the Snake was victorious in his WrestleMania debut at WrestleMania 3 in front of 93,000 people. He had a pretty heated rivalry at that time with the soon-to-be greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, the Honky Tonk Man.
And that match was horrible.
See, that one really doesn't stand out to me as bad. It's
You know why?
been a while since I've seen it.
Better than half the stuff that was on that show.
WrestleMania 3 has a fond place in many people's memories.
They only think of 2 matches.
Well, or Harley Race's opinion, there were 3 main events that night.
What was he, including his match?
Yes. Or Hercules and Billy Jack Haynes. But anyway, WrestleMania 4, they had the World Heavyweight title tournament after the infamous Andre the Giant Hulk Hogan match on NBC. Jake and Ravishing Rick Rude went to a draw at WrestleMania 4. I think it was supposed to be 15 minutes, but it felt like it went on for about 3 hours.
And there again, that was horrible. Although they went on to have a great feud.
They did. I think it was Superstars of Wrestling a month or so later. Rick Rude came on to Jake's wife at ringside, not knowing it was Jake's wife, and they had a great feud, I think, throughout Survivor Series.
Yeah, they had some great matches. I enjoyed. I saw a lot of them at the different venues.
I think we got, what did we get? Jake and Rude for the first time in July of '88?
I
In
believe
Boston?
so.
Off the top of my head, that's the first time I remember that. I remember, I think it was May of '88. Cheryl Roberts was in the crowd, and I think Rick Rude wore Coco Beware, if I remember right. And him and Jake had an altercation, but it wasn't an actual match. But again, that was 20-some-odd years ago at a, it's not like it was a pay-per-view that's easily accessible. But anyway, WrestleMania 5, I was a little Marati back then. My father's friend that had easy access to pay-per-view taped WrestleMania for me, and Jake's match with Andre the Giant went so long and was so slow, he actually paused the tape in the middle of the match. So
He knew something no one else did.
In my archives, I have WrestleMania 5 missing half the Jake and Andre match with Big John Studd as the referee.
Oh.
But at the end of that match, Jake had the altercation with Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase. I think, didn't DiBiase come down and steal Damien in the bag?
Yeah.
That's right. So they had pretty much a year-long feud going into WrestleMania 6 in Toronto, where Jake Roberts wrestled Ted DiBiase.
Probably his best WrestleMania match.
Oh, it was nice to see those feuds back in the day that could go a full calendar year like that. And then WrestleMania 7, the blindfold match between Jake and the model Rick Martel.
Oh. I wish I was blindfolded.
That was a feud that had some sizzle to it. I thought the original...
I agree.
The original angle was great, where Martel sprayed the arrogance in Jake's eye. Then Jake had the deformed eye when he came back, but the blow-off to it was it just blowed.
I think they had a good idea, but I don't think they figured out that, oh, wait a minute, now we're not going to be able to see.
And then we had, for the beginning of Jake's WWE career, I think it was his final match with the company at WrestleMania 8, when he took on The Undertaker, and he was tombstoned on the floor instead of in the ring, which led to some behind-the-scenes issues.
Yeah.
But Jake went down as one of the 21-0 up until WrestleMania. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Then Jake was back for WrestleMania 12. It was Jake, Yokozuna, and Ahmed Johnson against Jim Cornette's team of Vader, the late Davey Boy Smith, and the late Owen Hart in a 6-man tag. I believe Vader pinned Jake Roberts in that match. I could be wrong, though. I remember there was a stipulation where the Yoko would get Cornette for 5 minutes if his team won.
You had some talent on the other side, but oh my God.
Yoko was a little rough around the edges at that point. He got so big, unfortunately.
No, I know. I said some talent on the other side.
Oh, there you go. Any non-WrestleMania memories of Jake? I mean, WrestleMania doesn't really stand out for him, but, he was around WWE for an awful long time. one of the biggest stars of the 80s boom period.
His Steamboat matches were fantastic. Do you remember that?
The first event I ever saw at the Boston Garden in August of '86 had Jake and Steamboat.
Yeah, they had some good matches.
Jake?
And again, like I said, besides their WrestleMania match being so poor, they went on to a good run, him and Rude.
Right. I think most people will remember his feud with Randy Savage when the Cobra bit him, but the Rude feud was really good. It's too bad that it really didn't even begin at WrestleMania 4, but before the feud even began, it was just an opening round match at Mania, and most people are going to have easier access to WrestleManias as far as the video library goes. But yeah, Jake had a great run in WWE from, 86 to 92? I think he came in early 86.
Yeah, because I was just trying to think if he came in maybe December, but no, I think it was like mid-January.
Yeah, so great run there. He went to WCW where he didn't have so much luck. He went on to become a pretty top guy with AAA for a while there. Didn't they set some kind of an attendance record? Or
yeah, I don't know how, but maybe they just wanted to see him. It's weird how some people can get over someplace and can't get over elsewhere.
Yeah, well, Jake held up the AAA promoters for money there too, to add to his legacy of theft. Came back to WWE in early 1996. Was he a surprise Royal Rumble entrant?
He may have been. I know he was hoping to be a surprise entrant this past year, but
he'd be like
it didn't happen.
He'd be like the Sheik at WrestleMania 17, still trying to get to the ring.
I heard he's still there.
Yeah, he was back. He returned to WWE 96. He worked house shows. He worked behind the scenes. But by early 97, as he went on and on about the Bible and how much he changed, and he was still going out and getting drunk all the time, it really didn't have much of an impact. And he just kind of wandered around since then. Probably his appearance in the Beyond the Mat documentary will be well remembered to the diehard fans. Are you there, Jackal?
I am definitely still here.
All right, just want to make sure you still have a pulse. Come on, all right. Well, Jake the Snake Roberts was the second inductee of the night. Third on tap, we had Mr. T.
Oh, God. I'm not a big fan of the celebrity wing. However, and he should have probably went in first, it would have been Mr. T.
Where Mr. T wrestled, was involved in some way, shape, or form in the ring at the first two WrestleManias, would you consider him a celebrity?
Yes.
All right. How important was Mr. T to WWF back in 1985 and 1986 as far as being able to get mainstream publicity that they wouldn't have been able to get otherwise?
Definitely, as far as WrestleMania 1 goes, being that he was part of the main event, he definitely had a major impact in that. Big time. And of course, it all started with the law to settle the score, February the 18th, 1985 at Madison Square Garden when he hopped the guardrail.
Now, what was
to protect
Hulk Hogan?
Yes.
What was the build-up for Mr. T's debut? Was it just he was a bystander at ringside during that match, or had he been on WWE TV beforehand? What led to T's debut? I wasn't a fan at that point. I was too young.
I think that was before his Piper's Pit appearance.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was shortly after that. And then there was the Piper's Pit at Madison Square Garden only, 2 weeks before WrestleMania.
They were there, I think, on the 17th.
Yeah.
Where would you rank Mr. T as far as the celebrities go all time that have appeared for WWE? Because I think he's in a very elite category.
I don't know if he's number one. He's close if he isn't.
What about Lauper, another one, Cyndi Lauper, the singer that appeared at WrestleMania 1? How important was she to the show?
She was there a little earlier. She was there probably a year before.
Who do you think was more important to that show, Lauper or T?
As far as getting the WrestleMania 1 main event over and the show as a new concept, Mr. T.
Where would you compare him to celebrities we saw down the road, such as Mike Tyson at WrestleMania 14 and Donald Trump at WrestleMania 23?
Tyson's up there, but I don't really see Donald Trump up there because I don't think people cared about Donald Trump.
Well, it was the most purchased WrestleMania of all time. Still.
See, they wanted to see Vince McMahon, or probably even Donald. They wanted to see somebody lose their hair. But they were never. I just don't like Donald Trump.
Well, the fans at Madison Square Garden last year let him know.
Somebody.
Yes, much like myself.
Yeah, so.
Well, I think Tyson's day will certainly need to come, and I think Cyndi Lauper's should come sooner than later if she's willing to do it. Next year will be the real 30th anniversary of WrestleMania 1. Maybe it would be nice to see someone like her and King Kong Bundy inducted.
Yeah, I'm actually, Bundy's one of those people I'm surprised that's not in it already.
I mean, without a doubt, he didn't have the longest big WWE run of all time, but he held a record of sorts at WrestleMania 1 when he defeated S.D. Jones in what was a lot longer than 8 seconds. And he was in the main event of WrestleMania 2. And I think what often goes forgotten at WrestleMania 3, he had a pretty big moment when he splashed the midget. I remember it was covered on the news stations in Boston.
Oh, yeah?
I think it was ABC, Channel 5. That night they had the results of Hogan and Andre, Savage and Steamboat, and they showed the clip of the Bundy splashing the midget. Now maybe we'll see Bundy get his nod, maybe as soon as next year. Who knows?
Oh, I hope so.
Mr. T went on and on in his speech a little bit too long. He didn't mention anything about WWE. He didn't mention anything even about his career, really. He just proved that he is a family man, talking about his kids and especially his mother at great lengths, until Kane came out and kind of gave him the hook.
Nah. A well-deserved hook.
Well, Mr. T is in the WWE Hall of Fame, and I think even though he really didn't do all that much inside the squared circle for a great length of time, I think it's deserved there. What about the next inductee? My very good friend, the former president of the Millennium Wrestling Federation, the one and only Paul Bearer.
Well deserved.
Before the Hall of Fame induction, I really would only say that I wish they respected his wishes to have him inducted the same year as The Undertaker. Not with him, but the same year. In all reality, the only reason I kept my mouth shut as much as I did was because WWE has been so good to us here in the MWF and myself personally over the years. I was pretty pissed off. I knew his feelings. I knew what they were. He was a genuine friend to me. But I have to say, after the fact, I'm really glad I didn't get as angry about it as I thought I might, because I think it was handled a very classy way, having The Undertaker come out, his first appearance at any Hall of Fame, and give the photo of Percy the nod when holding the urn. I thought that was very creative, and I thought it was well-deserved. It treated him with the respect he deserved to be treated with. It was nice that both of his sons were able to go in. Paul Bearer was from Mobile, Alabama, not too far away. It still bothers me to this point how some of the hungry young athletes in the MWF missed out on the opportunity to interact with him more than they could have. I remember the last time he was here with us in general, the last time I ever saw him, back in September of 2012, we opened up the door to have the athletes come down and have their video work, in-ring reviewed by him, get his opinions on their verbal game. It just disgusts me that, on Sunday, that's the day independent wrestlers spend with their girlfriends. Well, you know what? That's the mantra. If you're going to go by that, 99% of the guys that have that thought in their head will never get anywhere in professional wrestling.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, come over they think that Sunday's a big day for wrestlers.
Well, it's just the whole attitude that goes along with it. That's the problem with regional wrestling nowadays. It's just everybody gets to play like it's Little League Baseball all over again. And it makes it suck. But I could go on and on about that. This is a look back at the Hall of Fame. Paul Bearer, rightfully inducted by his on-screen son, Kane, his 2 biological children, and then The Undertaker came out. It was a great moment. Made me feel good. I was happy to be at WrestleMania last year. WWE invited me to go to the Hall of Fame and the WrestleMania show in East Rutherford, New Jersey, when Undertaker and CM Punk played off of real life when Paul Bearer passed away a month before that show. It was kind of odd, but that was also nice in the way it worked itself out.
Right.
After Paul Bearer, we had Razor Ramon, the bad guy. Not Scott Hall, just Razor Ramon.
Right. Wow. Razor Ramon. I remember when he made his debut. And a lot of people were confused what his name was because I believe when he was doing his tryouts, it was a different name. It was close, but it wasn't quite what it ended up being.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, of course, we've seen that over the years with other people.
Do you think that Razor Ramon's body of work as just Razor Ramon from 92 to 96 in WWE was a Hall of Fame worthy run?
No.
You really don't?
No.
Hmm.
As Scott Hall in his his career, sure.
But just based on that time period, you say no?
No.
Interesting. Scott Hall as Razor Ramon that time period, other than his Intercontinental title run, he was similar to a Jake Roberts where, he was pretty much a top guy for the most part, but he was just about the last guy you'd get to before you'd go on to a championship run with whoever had the title at that point. But he was a star then. I think down the road we're going to see an NWO-type induction, which is what they're going to save the Scott Hall name for.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
You can join Ric Flair as one of the 2-time WWE Hall of Famers, which I'm sure will rub a lot of people the wrong way, but
oh, yeah.
That's professional wrestling. What goes on leaves a lot for debate, both good and bad. But the bad guy is in. He looked great.
Yes, he did.
Now forget about Jake Roberts with his teeth that were going down to his knees. I mean, if you didn't know anything about Scott Hall, what he's dealt with in life, or have not maybe seen him in some of his more recent appearances in TNA a couple of years back or on YouTube, you'd think you would have never known that he had the problems that he did. He looked like an older Razor Ramon.
Yeah.
Oh, good for him. The times we met Razor Ramon back in the day, he was a nice enough guy. I know a lot of people, have their own opinions. They don't like him. He never did us wrong. So, and I don't think he ever did anyone we know wrong. So I really can't knock the guy too much. And again, you have to give credit to DDP for rehabilitating the man's life. He has a son that's trying to make it in the King of Sports now. He's got great size to him. I think he's even bigger than Razor is. So I don't think we've seen the end of him.
No, I don't think so.
After the bad guy, we had a man I consider a legend in this sport, Carlos Colon.
Oh, definitely.
It was nice to see him inducted by one of his sons, the MWF Undisputed Heavyweight Champion Carlito, as well as his son and nephew, who compete as the Matadors in WWE.
Yes.
It was kind of a quick speech. It was done in Spanish. You being bilingual, you were able to decipher both parts of the speech. But Carlos Colon, for the fans that maybe aren't familiar with him, Jackal, I know maybe you could YouTube him, but tell the fans a little bit about Carlos Colon.
Carlos Colon, I would say, from what I'm actually being told is, I didn't know this. I just found this out, I think it was yesterday, actually, that he's finally going to retire.
Well, for real, or how many times? How many times are you going to play that card in wrestling?
He's presently getting ready to do his farewell tour.
Well, That'll be interesting. It'd be a good year for it. I mean, it would really tie everything all together for him. But what about Carlos Colon? What made him a legend, Jackal?
He was he got involved in one of those bloodbath type of matches. You know, like with your Abdullah the Butchers. Maybe the original Sheik had that kind of a style. Terry Funk, obviously. But Colon, he wrestled everybody. I mean, he had a long-standing feud with Randy Savage down in World Wrestling Council.
I didn't know anything about that until they actually put together the highlight package for him for the Hall of Fame. I never knew Randy Savage was down there.
Oh, Savage was everywhere.
Well, when we had Carlito here back in January at MWF Studios, he talked about, how even though Puerto Rico isn't a very large place, as far as, you couldn't go territory to territory, so to speak, but Carlos Colon brought in just about everybody from around the world, which made Carlito see all the different styles of wrestling throughout the globe.
Oh, yeah, he definitely, he could have learned, he probably learned from a lot, of course, obviously from watching his father. But like you said, the different people that came in there.
I think what we're going to do, Jackal.
Brody was down there for a long time.
Well, he was.
Well, even before then.
I think what we're going to do, for the fans that are watching this on television and the fans that are going to watch it on YouTube, I'm going to try and put a link up with the video itself. Try and get to the BostonWrestling.com website page for this show. I think what we'll do, Jackal, is for whatever we talk about, try and put up some links to where fans can find some video about what we're talking about. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting.
Well, Carlos Colon, I remember him pretty much from only just reading about him in the magazines when I was a kid. That was back in the day when, my gosh, the place on Route 1 in Saugus, I don't remember the name of the magazine store, but there were about 15 different magazines a month that came out about wrestling.
He was probably on the cover of some of them.
I remember seeing that blood, and you know what? I always thought that was the coolest thing as a kid. But Carlos Colon, again, certainly someone that belongs in a Hall of Fame. And then it was on to the main event, the ultimate.
But one thing with Colon is if you got the WWE Network, you're on the Starcades.
All right. Fans, if you have the WWE Network, get online now. Check out Carlos Colon at some of the early Starcades. And if you're not subscribing, again, the 1-week free trial is still available. And then after that, it's $9.99 per month with a 6-month commitment. And that includes every live WWE pay-per-view and so much great stuff. I don't think we're even giving the WWE Network its proper dues at this point. But it's a great value. It'll certainly keep you entertained, whether you're a diehard fan and an old-school fan like myself and the Jackal, or even a newer fan like Little Marathi at 8 years old. He's always finding something on there he enjoys an awful lot, probably too much, but as long as his ass gets the good grades in school, he can watch whatever he wants. But then on to the main...
Good grades, it's all that counts.
Yeah, there you go. From the historian himself, the voice of wrestling in New England, the Jackal. The good grades are all that counts. And then it was on to the main event at the Hall of Fame. The Ultimate Warrior, inducted by a woman that brings a little bit of class no matter where she goes in the world of wrestling or sports entertainment, Linda McMahon.
Oh, he wanted her, he got her.
Well, you could take that a few ways, Jackal, but...
No, stop it.
A very unique career for the Ultimate Warrior. Again, he wasn't a guy that was particularly around wrestling. As long as a lot of the Hall of Famers you see. Would he break in 1985?
If not, at 84, the earliest.
Okay, and he was done as far as being a full-time athlete goes at the SummerSlam in 1991. He came back in 1992 for a half year or so, and then he was back in 96 for an even shorter period of time. He was in WCW in 98 for an even shorter period of time than that. But, I mean, I think anyone that ever watched wrestling back then will always remember the Ultimate Warrior. No matter how good or bad he was in the ring, that's up for the pundits to discuss. But just a very colorful character, certainly one that younger fans enjoyed a great deal. And they still enjoy him now because the Warrior's merchandise is moving great. He's been a marquee addition to the WWE video games, and action figures and everything else that the Legends are now part of. Your thoughts on the Ultimate Warrior?
As far as the Ultimate Warrior goes, no, I'm not going to be critical. I know that my tone may sound like that. I felt he should have been inducted sooner.
I think it was just...
But I know there was a little rift there between him and the company.
I don't think it was little, but...
Well...
I think him and the WWE were involved in more lawsuits than a friend of yours threatens to sue someone.
Yeah, he put a lot of lawsuits with the company.
And I'll say this, and this really didn't come to mind until we were talking about Jake Roberts, but the Warrior was almost the polar opposite of Jake, where, you know, his quote-unquote wrestling from bell to bell isn't always remembered as the greatest, but he was one that really put together some memorable WrestleMania matches. I don't think anything...
I remember when the WrestleMania 6 match was coming up. I expected that main event to be a snooze. I actually enjoyed the match.
I thought it was one of the better matches I'd ever seen at that point in time.
Now, you take the following year. I thought that match was going to be horrible. Savage and Warrior.
Yep.
And that was very good.
I think his match with Rick Rude at WrestleMania 5 certainly wasn't bad.
Oh, there was nothing wrong with it.
No, I thought again, this was coming from, what year was that, 89? So I was 8 or 9 at the time. It didn't stand out to me as anything I didn't want to watch. I thought the finish was unique.
Yes.
I always liked Bobby Heenan's guys for the most part. And that led to, he had a long, long run with Rick Rude.
Yes. Too long, maybe.
But yeah, the Warrior is certainly deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. Everyone knows that unfortunately the Warrior passed away a couple of days after the Hall of Fame induction. He had a great final weekend with WWE, and what happened on the Tuesday, it almost seems surreal. I don't think we're going to get into that fully tonight, Jackal. I mean, everyone knows that Warrior passed. We can certainly have another episode of The Insiders to talk about maybe the Warrior's legacy in wrestling, but certainly a Hall of Famer in waiting, so to speak, over the past few years. It was great that he was able to put things together the way with WWE the way he did. He was signed a long-term contract to play the Mick Foley role as a great ambassador to the company. And he was a man that lived by his principles. So I'm sure the Warrior's legacy is going to live on with WWE, especially where they're on such good terms before he passed.
There's a lot of old stuff on the network now. It's been Warrior Week.
Yeah. Is the DVD that he did not like, the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, available on the network?
Right now, the DVD section, they haven't even started it yet, but supposedly, all the DVDs or Coliseum videos that came out, they're supposed to make their way to the network.
That's going to be great. Another reason why fans should try and get on board with the network ASAP before Extreme Rules hits the multi-platform network on May the 4th. I would hope WWE wouldn't put the first Warrior DVD up maybe years down the road, but not now.
I understand what you're saying, but if they're going to offer all the content, that has to be included.
Oh, I agree with you, but I'd hold off on it for a while. It's like Benoit. I really don't see anything wrong with Chris Benoit being available on WWE Network now, as long as there's some kind of a warning put up about it. I don't know about. What do you think?
I have my own feeling about him.
Well, I knew how close you were with Nancy Benoit, who was the ex-wife of Kevin Sullivan. But, I mean, take your personal feelings aside. Do you think that Benoit should be erased from history, or do you think he should be part of what he did without publicizing him?
If, I'm glad I know they do put a disclaimer up, and I have yet to come across I haven't watched anything where he would be on yet. But obviously, he took part in a bunch of WrestleManias, and if you're going to watch the WrestleManias, you can't edit the match out.
Yeah, that kind of took away from the Monday Night War airings on the Classics On Demand, trying to get him out of the Raws and Nitros as he appeared and trying to edit the commentary, and it just, I don't know. I mean, that's certainly, to me, the darkest day in wrestling history with the publicity that came of it, but I just think now it's been 7 years. As long as the fan knows exactly what it is that's coming on, I think they should be able to decide for themselves whether they want to watch anything with him involved in it, or whether it's something that, they can just shrug their shoulders at and maybe enjoy the wrestling. I don't know exactly the right words for it, and I believe WWE Network also offers a block where you can take out programming of a certain rating where you have to put in a password. I haven't got to that point yet, and I'm sure the little one would probably figure out my passwords, but yeah, I can be a fool for him any day, but I don't see anything wrong with it. I just think with the Warrior, I wouldn't see anything wrong with the Ultimate Warrior Self-Destruction DVD maybe a couple of years from now. It was what it was. I'm sure his other DVD is going to come to be, too. The one that the more positive one where he got to tell his story his way that came out right around WrestleMania time.
I'm glad he at least got to come out. I know they filmed a lot of stuff with him the weekend he was here.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, he's just such a colorful character. That's something that's always going to continue to move. When I was a kid, I wasn't exactly a big Warrior fan, but I just always thought his stuff was so cool. When they had the big 24 by 36 movie-sized posters that they sold at the Garden every month, he just always had a cool look to him with all the colors and, the entrance and so on and so forth. I was a Hogan guy going into WrestleMania 6, but I had a feeling it was going to be the Warriors' time just based upon the WWF magazine that came out earlier in the month when I think it was Hogan with Warriors' face paint logo bigger than Hogan in the mountains of Canada behind it. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do. You mentioned that. I remember the time when Savage was winning the title. You knew it was happening before it happened.
You know what? No, you want to know who I was hoping it would be? Don Morocco.
Why?
I was always a Don Morocco fan, and I remember the morning after WrestleMania 4, I remember going to wake up my parents because they had seen the news and obviously knew who won. I was hoping it was going to be Morocco.
But you do remember what I'm talking about, though, right?
What was the giveaway for Randy Savage? I don't remember that.
Well, WWF magazine at the time came out way before WrestleMania 4, and it said Elizabeth, manager of the new WWF champion.
Oh, I didn't know that, and I used to get the magazine every month. Wow, well, that was certainly a faux pas on whoever put that article together. God. There was a big difference between that and putting up a logo that was bigger than Hogan's in the magazine. Jesus. But anyway, Ultimate Warrior was in the main event spot at the Hall of Fame. And Jackal, as usual, we're getting talking. I think what we'll do now is we're going to take a brief timeout, fans, see what else is going on. We'll be right back with our thoughts on WrestleMania 30. Be with us.